See, the issue was with the Sahaba, Ridwanullahi alayhim ajmain. We are talking about the way in which uh, we have changed the whole system, and then we complain about the results. The thing I want to explain to you is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created this world and He created a system. And He created this with some rules. Now these rules apply across the board, no matter who you are and what you are. And these are like the rules of physics. Rules of physics are also rules created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And just like they apply across the board. Anyone, Muslim, non-Muslim, whatever, if he or she follows that rule, then they get a certain result. If they don't follow that rule, they get a different result. The law of gravity is where it attracts anything, any free-falling object towards the earth at an acceleration of 32 feet per second per second. If you are in that situation, if you are free-falling, then you are under the effect of gravity. Now, if you do not want that effect of gravity to reach to its natural conclusion, which means that you don't want to meet the earth traveling towards it at that acceleration, then you have to do something to counter that, which is a parachute, right? So you wear a parachute which counters the force of gravity, so you land on the earth safely. Otherwise, you will smash yourself to death. The same rule applies to success and failure. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the rule. And the rule that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made was, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us a lens through which to look at the dunya. He said, look at the dunya through this lens and you will see a picture. And that picture is the picture of truth, the picture of reality. Look at the dunya through another lens, the opposite of that, it gives you a different picture, and that picture is a picture of deception. Now, the Sahaba, what they did was, they wanted the dunya. They wanted the dunya. They loved the dunya just like we loved the dunya. They wanted the dunya just like we wanted the dunya. But not at the expense of the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? Otherwise, if you say that they did not want the dunya, then explain to me Uthman bin Affan radiallahu anhu. Explain to me Abdul Rahman bin Auf radiallahu anhu. Why did they continue to do business? Why didn't they just become monks and go sit in the masjid and say, I'm in itikaf for my whole life? They didn't. They were very powerful businessmen. They were hugely, wealthy, and they continued to do business. But they did business in the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prescribed. Right? Now, what was the difference? The difference was they looked at the dunya. They looked at their ambitions, their desires. They looked at the dunya, the world, through the lens of the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala jalla jalaluhu. For them, the view that they could see through this lens of the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala jalla jalaluhu, that was the real view. And in fact, this is true. So for them, the non-negotiable thing, the thing that there was no, that they did not consider to be something which was, which they could ignore, the thing for which they had no alternative, and they didn't even want an alternative, right? That's the key. The thing to understand is they were not obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as if it was a great burden. They were obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala out of love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So for them, the thing that had no alternative and that was non-negotiable was the obedience of Allah. Everything else in the world was negotiable. Now when they looked at the dunya in this way and they made Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala supreme in their lives, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them the dunya. Allah gave them more dunya than we can ever imagine. Right? Our desires are really, if you look at our desires are miserable. Our desires are not even worth thinking about. Our desires are purely personal. I want to build my own house. I want to build a house. What kind of house? Are you looking at the palace of Alhambra? No. Even our desire in the dunya is so miserable. Some wooden structure in this country, most of it is wood. One spark and it goes up in bonfire. This is our desire. I want to have this car. Buy the car. Our desire is not to build the car. Our desire is not to create this absolutely fabulous, automobile which runs on love alone. No. Our desire is to buy a car. So you buy a car and make somebody else wealthier. These are our desires. I want to marry a beautiful woman or this handsome man. And then most Muslim men, they want to marry, they never do it, but they always talk about, second wife, third wife, fourth wife. Absolute garbage. This is the extent of our desires. How many, I spend my whole life talking to people, right? This is my work. I counsel people, I talk to people, halakha, this, that. I've never heard somebody say, I want to create an economic system that truly revolutionizes this world. I want to create a system of government. I'm not a king, but if I ever become the president or prime minister or king of a country, then I want to create a system of government which will have this absolutely fantastic society which is free from all pain and suffering. I've never heard somebody say something like this. I've never heard somebody say that I want to build this automobile, this car, which is, as I said, runs on love alone or sunshine or something. Zero emissions. Ajib. I mean, maybe I'm in the wrong circles. Maybe you are with people who constantly talk about these great inventions and so on. You only hear about consuming. What kind of ambitions are these? The Sahaba didn't have all this. They said, we obey Allah. And there's no alternative to that. So Allah gave them the dunya. Allah gave them the whole world. He created, He gave them, they had, and the generations after them, they had an empire which was 5 times the size of the empire of Alexander, the so-called Great. 5 times in area. At the end of the Banu Umayyah, when the Banu Abbas came, they inherited an empire which was 5 times in size, 3 times the size of the Roman Empire at its peak, 5 times the size of the empire of Alexander, the so-called Great. How did it happen? And then I don't have the time here to go into all the the economics and whatnot of it. They did that without enslaving people. They did that without mass slaughter of people. When Julius Caesar conquered Gaul, Gaul had a population of 300,000. Julius Caesar, 300,000. Julius Caesar slaughtered 100,000 in one day in the war. And he said this is a good day. So 1/3 of the population he slaughtered. Another 1/3 of the population he enslaved. He took them as slaves and carted them off to Rome. And 1/3 were just scattered all over Gaul. He completely destroyed the whole state of Gaul. The whole, those days there were no states and countries and no national bodies. Gaul is present day France, or most of it. The Muslims did not do any of this. The Muslims did not mass enslave people. The Muslims did not mass slaughter people. Yet they had an empire of, 5 times the size of the empire of Alexander and 3 times the size of the empire of Julius Caesar and the Romans. All this because of the lens through which they looked at the dunya. We, on the other hand, we have turned it upside down. We look at the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the lens of our desires. I will obey Allah if it suits me. I will obey Allah if it is convenient for me. I will obey Allah if it fits in somewhere with my desires. My desires must come first. So I want to buy a house, I want to build a house, and if I have to take an interest-based mortgage, that's okay. You say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala declared war on you if you do that. I don't care. I want to start a business for which I will take an interest-based loan. I want to go have an education in a university in this country where where education and healthcare are the two biggest scams. So I want to take a educational loan and put myself, under, end up with a amount to pay back of $100,000 or more, and as a result of that, I enslave myself to the system. This is something which is non-negotiable. If you ask somebody, first of all, why do you need to buy a house or build a house? Why don't you live in a rented house, which is halal? Why must you get an education, so-called education in this country? Go to some other country and get the education. Much cheaper. You will get the same education for 1/10 the price. Why don't you change what you want to learn? Because there are many things that you can learn in this country which do not cost that much. I know a friend of mine who wanted to be a dentist. When he figured out and he did all the sums, he realized that he needed $1 million to graduate and set up a dental practice. So he changed his goal and he decided to become a builder, a licensed builder. He's become successful. He's on his way to maybe earning $100,000 or more annually, doing something which he likes to do, because he was good with his hands, he likes to do that, at his own pace. My brothers and sisters, please understand this. There are always alternatives. The question is, what do you hold as non-negotiable? Which is the lens through which you want to look at the world? This is what the Sahaba of Rasulullah did. They put on the glasses of the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and they never took them off. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala let them see success in this world and He let them see Jannah, inshallah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Jalla Jalaluhu to be pleased with us and never to be displeased. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyil kareem wa alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in bi rahmatika ya arhamar rahimin.